Hey, welcome back to episode 151 of the Never Iron Anything Comics Review podcast, on our road to number 200. This week we're taking a trip back into the Bronze Age. My guide on that brilliant era is comics fan, creator and white pudding expert, Mr. David Robertson.
Hello, Tony.
White pudding.
How are you?
I'm all right, man. All right.
White puddings.
We shared a couch on an episode of the TCS, That Comic Smell.
That was fun.
And you showed me you revealed the world of white pudding to me.
Yeah, and a lot of surprising things about white puddings.
Yeah, for the After Hours special.
Yeah, some good information there, eh?
Yeah, it
Not
was.
necessarily always related to just eating a white pudding.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, even Nando joined in. He had a little conversation with us about it, didn't he? We discussed its merits and its origins. Yeah.
Yeah. Spicy battered fried porridge, I always call it. In an effort to get people to try and eat it.
For anyone not in Scotland, it does actually look quite nice. I haven't had it yet, but I intend to. But yeah, and that was during a little visit I did to Scotland, and you guys kindly invited me onto your podcast, and we talked about Mad Magazine. It's very cool. Good fun couple of hours that was. And I think if as we stand as of today, it's the last episode that came out from That Comic Smell. You can find it if you get on it, and you'll see it's the most recent episode. So get on and have a listen to it. The boys were good. It's a good little fun trip. Yeah, it's good. Excellent. Well, you've challenged me to read something that I had never read the first 5 issues of this. I'd read some later issues, so I'd never read it. But you've challenged me to read it, which I've done, and we're going to talk about it through it in a minute. What have you suggested we read, dude?
Well, it's always been a favourite of mine. It's Power Pack that started in the mid-'80s, early to mid-'80s, by Louise Simonson, June Brigman from Marvel Comics.
Excellent.
And, yeah.
Now this is an interesting one because I've got some theories about why this exists, and there are some sort of theories as to why Wheezy came up with it. But I think June Brigman is also credited as co-plotter, isn't she, or co-writer? Yeah. Script creator, I think she's co-credited with.
Yes. Yeah. Creators. Mm-hmm.
Now, before we get a bit into the history of it, how did you find this? I'm going to guess. Can I guess?
Please do.
Star Wars Weekly.
Well, that's a very good guess.
It's a wrong one,
however,
though, is it?
On this occasion, that's usually the answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
But this time, no. It was one of those US Marvels that you were able to go into a little newsagent in a small town, and it would be sat there in amongst all the other US Marvel.
Yeah.
So I saw the one with Spider-Man in it, Power Pack. So it wasn't one of the first 5. It was a bit later on.
Okay, because I think that was issue 6, wasn't it? Because we stopped. We've done the first 5 issues because it's kind of in new money. Yeah. It's an arc, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we've just kind of missed it.
Yeah.
On this reread, but there was that, and then like Nightcrawler was in it, X-Men and things. So they were trying to get your readers of other Marvels to try this new thing. So that's what I did, and I liked it right away.
But we used to do that, didn't we, Dave? We used to jump into a comic series, issue 10 or something. We didn't care. We weren't desperate just to be in issue 1, were we? Sometimes,
Well, that's right. I mean, really, any Marvel comic at the time, if you were a dedicated Marvel zombie like I was worth reading. Yeah. And then you picked which one that you wanted to read.
So the thing is, Dave, I always think that from the recommendations you come on here and talked about, we talked about Battlestar Galactica, didn't we, previously? You've got a bit of a love for this era and sort of the science fiction end of it, haven't you, I think? Would you say that?
Yeah,
right?
I do.
Yeah.
I would say that I was reading comics as a kid, and it would have been that Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica kind of era.
Yeah.
And also the Marvel UK kind of weeklies covering that stuff. And then some DCs got through, things like that. And then there would have been a bit later on when I was maybe getting into teen years where I uh, loved comics again. It was renewed.
Okay.
It wasn't like I dropped it. It was like, no, I loved it more than ever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so 84 would have been, as I was saying, that kind of really going in for reading Spider-Man Weekly every week kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Deciding, no, this is it. In all the Marvels that I could find.
I mean, Spider-Man Weekly ran for hundreds of issues, didn't it? You know, it kept going. I know it sort of.
You know, I believe it was 666
Bloody
issues
hell! Wow.
it ran for. 666 weeks.
And it dipped in and out of formats. We had that sort of weird, you know, sideways format, didn't we? And then we had the TV, Spider-Man TV comic, which they tried to do colour on and had photographs on the covers of it, and that didn't really work. And then before that, we had Captain Britain join it, didn't we? You know, it had various incarnations, but it seemed to be that, and I think even Mighty World of Marvel didn't last that long. It just sort of seemed to be just this steady comic that was about forever.
It was definitely the flagship of the Marvel UK.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with that, man. And we also, do you remember we had Marvel Team Up as well?
Yeah,
that was a good little comic. I remember that, and that came out along with Future Tense, and there was a Captain America series, and you know, yeah, golden times, man. Going and getting your Marvel comics in the newsagents. That's what you wanted.
Yeah, Marvel Team Up. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
You got free stickers with it as well.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
What could be better?
Yeah. Now, for me, because I think I don't know what it's like in the shops up near you, but for me, it was like you go in the shop and you kind of, if you got there just as they put them on the shelf, you'd get Avengers, X-Men, Iron Man, you know, the more popular titles. But if you got them and you fancy going back and getting another title, I had like a definitive pecking order. And this was, I'm going to say, fairly low down on my totem pole, to be fair. I think which is the reason I only picked up maybe 5 or 6 issues. And that was post this little arc. So I'll get you to summarise it in a minute. But at the end of this arc, they moved to New York, don't they, the family? So I think that was the reason. I think probably it may be because I'm a bit older than you and I was more looking for sort of older people in comics, I guess. You know, where you were more accepting of this sort of younger. I'll tell you what, let's get you to, because people will be rabbiting on about people who don't know Pat won't know what we're talking about. So did you want to give a little summary of what it's about, Dave?
Yeah, so this comic's unusual because for Marvel superheroes, it's all about little kids.
Yeah.
And they get the superpowers and what have you. So it opens up with it actually opens up on full-on sci-fi mode, which was interesting. As soon as you open it, space battles.
Full Star Wars,
Yeah, and they're intercutting that with kind of family life. With these 4 kids, mum and dad hanging out. So as this is going on, Katie is looking out the window and she sees flashing lights in the sky, and on the news we have reports of UFOs.
Yeah.
So the sci-fi and the family elements are starting to mix up as it goes along. And what we'll find out is that there's this alien called Whitey, and his spaceship is called Friday, and they're fighting with these evil snarks.
And Whitey to me looks a bit like there's a sort of space unicorn thing going on there, isn't there?
Definitely is.
Yeah.
He is like, I mean, he doesn't have the actual horn, but he's definitely sort of white and pink horse.
Yeah.
Friendly alien. So they start to interact with each other, and it's all because the power part. Oh, by the way, the family they're all called Power. That's why why they're called the Power Pack, because their surname is Power. So their mum and dad are living there, and it turns out Whitey later explains to them that their dad is a genius, and he has discovered this antimatter, and that is a great power source, but also it's so powerful that it destroyed all of the planet that Whitey is from.
Yeah.
So the Snarks want this power so that they can create weapons and take over the galaxy. So that's kind of the backdrop to this. And, well, Whitey gets her as it goes on.
Yeah,
It's more for
I
the,
think
more
we're
for the
fine with
vintage.
spoilers. Yeah, I think let's go through
Yeah,
spoilers.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And so he decides, well, I better pass on some of my, well, maybe all of these powers. He splits them up and gives them to the kids, and they then each have individual powers that Whitey had all of these powers.
Yeah.
And so then we have the adventures of them finding out what the powers are, while the Snarks are trying to get them, because they come and try and capture Mum and Dad.
Yeah. So that's their thing at the time. They try and get mum and dad back. There's also these, ongoing worries that they don't really want their parents to know about their powers.
Yes.
And they get sort of these costumes from Whitey and the Chameleons. Right. And let's go through the names. So you've got Alex Power, he's 12. He's called G. His power is gravity based. You've got Julie Power, 10. She's called Light Speed. She's got that sort of rainbow light speed, fast power,
Yes.
Recently, a love interest for Gwenpool, painful as it is. Jack Power, he's 8, and he's called Mass Master, and he's got sort of density powers, which develop and are understood more as we go through the series. But at the start, he thinks, I just can turn into a cloud. That's not very good. And then Katie Power, who's, I don't know what you think about this, Dave. I'm going to say is probably the star of it. This is sort of quirky kid with a personality more than a lot of the other ones, I'm going to say. She's called Energizer, and she's got this sort of energy projection powers in her hands. So they're the family, and it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I think that we'll talk about this in a minute, but about this being made today, how would they go about it differently? But the thing is, they do, as kids who are between 5 and 12, they do get in fights with people. There are physical fights, aren't there, with these adult aliens, as it were, and later on adults. I'm not sure you'd see that now. I'm not sure. I remember when me and Andy Zook did Springworth, we were told by a couple of, I'm doing those finger quote things, experts in kids comics, that you can't have kids fighting in comics because it's sort of frowned upon. But we went along and did it anyway, mind you. But you get a lot of that in this, don't you? The kids are in constant jeopardy,
Yeah, it is a good representation of kids and the kind of concerns they've got, but they are right in the middle of a regular dramatic story.
Yeah.
So you will have them. In these initial ones, you had aliens really trying to kill them, and also that the other criminal. Well, he wasn't a criminal, but he was the dad's boss, and he was, what was he called? Carmody, Mr. Carmody.
Yeah.
And he was wanting to kill them and what have you, and they were running around dealing with this, but also still having concerns like whether the Tooth Fairy existed or not.
Yeah, that's a recurring one. That comes back in a couple of issues.
That was well done. That was good.
Yeah, it was.
And do you know what was another interesting one? Not directly related. Well, maybe actually related, but they'd be in the middle of somebody would. One of the kids was stuck, and then he kind of thought, and then he thought, I'm hungry. I've not eaten for ages. And I thought that's quite interesting because you don't usually read that in any sort of heroic adventure thing. Food is not a concern for anybody. They go away for weeks on end on spaceships and they don't need anything to eat. And I was thinking about that, and I think when you are a parent, you do kind of realise that kids being hungry, they're dependent on you to give them food,
Yeah.
It's like we get used to going around thinking I'm hungry and nipping into a shop, buying something or having something already in our pocket. But kids they're not in control of getting food. Anyway, so that was good.
That was interesting. And that's a recurring theme for a couple of issues, isn't it? Where they're just hungry and they can't go home and get anything. Yeah. They're worried they're going to get caught if they go home. They grab
bars of chocolate from places and apples and things.
That's right. Yeah. There's also Marvel, to me, invested in this quite heavily because it's rare these days that we'll get a completely unknown character that gets a double-sized issue on release. First issue was extra-sized, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was that, and that's the thing. These were completely new characters. This was like a new original idea that was coming out.
Yeah,
I don't know how often Marvel would do that at all now.
yeah. Hmm.
Maybe they do. I don't know.
Well, they tend to do sort of, it'll be connected to something
Yeah,
else that's appeared somewhere else. But these were
this is
completely
connected to
fresh.
nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
at the
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, and it isn't for the first 5 issues. The first 5 issues kind of stand on their own. It's not until issue 6 that we get Dragon Man and Spider Man appearing.
Yeah.
I mean, it became known as a comic that did cross over quite heavily. I mean, it's worth saying
Yeah.
that the first series is based in, is it California? I think it's California, isn't it?
I think so. I was reading it with an eye to where exactly is this set, and I wasn't quite finding it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, somewhere, where there's
I
a
thought
sort
I'm
of,
being stupid again here.
I think it's kind of like the old, where NASA kind of area, isn't it? Where there's these sort of
Yeah.
big business companies, and then for the later issues, they moved to New York, which was when I was reading it, which is
That's
when they
right.
sort of bump up against other characters. I mean, it became known as a series about kids that deals with more adult issues later on.
Yes.
So there was, I think they did one that was it? They did one which Spidey was in. It's like a one-off issue that was to raise awareness against child sexual abuse.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
issue later on, and then in 1989, Power Pack and Cloak and Dagger had a graphic novel raising awareness of teenage runaways. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because these days it would be probably, I'm going to say, probably done in some kind of faux manga style, and would be like laser sighted on a particular demographic. But this seemed to be, I hate to say all ages, but because it's an overused phrase, but it's something that a comic reader of 16 could read and enjoy, as well as a comic reader of say 10 could enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot there to think about.
yeah,
The all ages tag is often sounds a little bit like,
yeah, no, yeah,
but really, all ages really should be a great thing. The thing I always think of with all ages is like Bone, Jeff Smith. To me,
Yeah.
that's like perfect all ages. Anybody, age can read that, and I think
get
and
something from it.
recognise that it's really good.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. Yeah.
So that's perfect all ages.
So let's talk a little bit about the series. So it came out in series started in 1984. It ran for 62 issues, which isn't a massive run back then. In 1986, it was the backup, as we talked about earlier, in Star Wars Weekly, and then it eventually ended up in the UK Thundercats comic as a backup.
Oh right, I missed that.
Yeah. So what happened was Wheezy was an editor, Louise Simonson was an editor at Marvel, and at that point, just prior to this book, the editors were encouraged to sort of build their income up by writing a book as well, and it took her quite a while to come up with it, and she ended up approaching June Brigman and doing this series. But the thing with it is, I think, is Wheezy had been an editor on New Mutants and had certainly been in the X office during the which was probably kind of the first spin-off of the X-Men, wasn't it? New Mutants, which was aimed in its original 15 issues before Bill Sienkiewicz took over as a comic that was for a slightly younger reader, like a high schooler, because the kids in that were all drawn as much younger.
Yeah.
And I think Wheezy had maybe seen that and thought, well, we can do one better than that. We can go younger than that. And they've gone the generation or this, the age group before the start of New Mutants. And that's kind of where it's come from. There's been a number of attempts, as you can well imagine, Dave, at reimagining and bringing these characters, rebooting them back again. There was 2000, there was a miniseries. And there's been a couple of attempts at bringing it back. What's her name? Julie Power and Katie Power have been in and out of comics recently, but none of it has really caught on in the way that this one does. I think this one, a lot of people have fond memories of this. If you talk to people who are fans and readers of that era, Power Pack's got quite a solid reputation, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. And like all of these things, in my mind, they're good because of who made them, you know?
Yeah.
So I know that's not the way Marvel Comics works. That
I think it's the way
you
it
know,
realised it worked. I didn't. Don't, I think I imagine it started off as just let's get the next issue out the door.
yeah,
Who's available? Don Heck, Gene Colan, whoever it's going to be, and then they
yeah,
began to recognise. I think around this period that these real superstars, which eventually could have been its downfall when the image revolution happened, are the leads.
hmm
People are buying them
hmm
because of the artists sometimes.
yeah.
Wheezy was a
But
solid writer though. I do like her stuff. I think
hmm
she's. Have you met her? Have you or?
no,
Yeah, I met her at a con. She's super nice. Yeah, really nice. Um,
hmm
let's talk a little bit about Louise Simonson. Born in 1946 in Atlanta, she met Jeffrey Catherine Jones whilst at Georgia State College in 1964, and they married in 1966. They moved to New York City, and Wheezy was the model used by Bernie. Oh, let's see if you know this. Do you know what covers she famously appeared on?
what cover?
There's a drawing of her brushing her hair in a mirror on a cover.
Yeah, it sounds like Swamp Thing.
It is, yeah, it is. It's
That was a
DC's.
guess. I didn't know that.
That's good though. Yeah, yeah. It was
Hmm.
the first cover of the Swamp Thing, the DC House of Secrets '92, and in the summer
Oh,
of 1971. Yeah, Bernie Wrightson, who obviously Jeffrey Catherine Jones was a friend of and the studio mate, used
wow.
Louise Simonson as the model for it.
I didn't know that. That's a good one.
That's cool, isn't it? Yeah. She then worked magazine company. She and Jones split, but she called herself Louise Jones for quite a number of years afterwards.
Hmm
1973, she met Walt, and they married in 1980. 1988 to 1989, she worked with Walt on X Factor. Known as much as an editor as a writer, I'm going to say, and edited Uncanny X-Men with Claremont writing from 137 to 182, like a really great period of that comic. From the end of Burn through to I'm going to say almost the start of Romita. She had a long run editing Marvel's Conan book of all things. It's great, isn't it? These editors they turn their hand to anything.
Yeah.
She also edited New Mutants, as we mentioned, and also Star Wars and Indiana Jones, which I know you're a fan of both. I'm going to say, Dave. Yeah,
Oh yeah. hmm
that Indiana Jones Marvel series was great. The creators they had Byrne was on it, wasn't he? I think Dick Coe was on a couple of issues, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did a lot of them.
Yeah, that was a great run. That was. Extremely influential, and a lot went on in the fledgling days of what was, we now know as the X Universe, and when it moved from one ongoing to others. She also wrote in Marvel Team Up, Web of Spider-Man, Starias, I don't know how you say it. Never said that out loud, that word. And she also wrote a DC on some of the Superman family titles, and in the 2000s returned to Marvel and wrote some of their cosmic books. Absolutely adored by the comics industry. Her and Walt, I think, are kind of a lovely couple, aren't they? I think they often do conventions together now. I saw them at Heroes in Charlotte last year, sort of wandering around, saying hello to everyone. Really nice. She's won a number of awards. UK Eagle Award for Power Pack. So particularly big in the UK, I'm going to say. The Eagle Awards were back then quite a big deal, weren't they? Did you ever vote in them? They used to put the voting forms, didn't they, in some Marvel UK and 2000 AD issues,
All
didn't
right.
they, back then?
No, I don't. I didn't vote. I don't even remember seeing the. I must have missed the issues with
Ah,
the
okay.
forms in them.
I think what happened was 2000 AD started printing the voting form in the back of their issue, and of course they then stormed it because you know what 2000 AD fans are like.
Oh yeah.
The only thing in the world is 2000 AD. In 1992, Comic Buyer's Guide Award for The Death of Superman, and then 1992 she got the Inkpot Award for Outstanding Achievement in Comics Art. 2016 she wrote some Faith at Valiant. I didn't realise that. That's pretty much the only Valiant title I didn't read, which if I'd known she was on it, I'd probably grabbed the title. But yeah, a cracking person, really good, still chatty. I remember she walked past the end of the sort of row of tables when we were at Heroes and waved at us, and we waved back. And Falpy went, "Oh, that's nice, wasn't it?" The cold heart of Falpy melted a little. Um, the
I remember seeing a photo of her in the bullpen bulletins page, like with a cowboy hat on or something, and underneath it said Wheezy. Remember that?
No, I don't know. I don't think I saw that one. That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No one's ever got a bad word to say about her, have they? She's one of those sort of people, everyone loved.
yeah.
Can't have been easy with Jeffrey Catherine Jones either, I imagine. during that period. Yeah, interesting. Now, there's a couple of themes that I thought we could discuss that came out of it. One of the big things, and we touched on it a minute ago, is don't tell your parents, which is a strange one. I don't know if that would happen now. The fact they managed to keep it. I mean, God knows how, because they sort of recover their parents from outer space at one point in this series, and they don't. I think eventually they find out, don't they? Further down the series.
Later on, yeah.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, Dave? Do you think that's something that would be allowed now?
Well, every time I think about that, I'm not really sure it was allowed then either.
You're probably right.
I mean, this comic really was quite an outlier at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I read it thinking this thing's really unusual because it's from the kid's point of view, and also, but it's not in a condescending sort of way,
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah. That's maybe a bit of a dodge to that question, but that's what strikes me. Even then, it's not like comics were like this back then, but now they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
This one is, but so I don't know. I'm not sure.
Maybe secret identities were definitely more in vogue back then as well, weren't they? Now everyone knows who Iron Man is, everyone knows who Captain America is and Thor and all this sort of thing. Back then everyone had a sort of secret identity, didn't they?
Yeah,
even the more ridiculous ones, so maybe that.
Yeah, you're right, because I remember that being quite shocking. Because even the Hulk comics, when they started, it was all hiding. Banner was hiding the fact he was the Hulk. He's one of the first I remember where I think he was on TV or something in the comic, and he turned from the Hulk to Banner, or vice versa, and so now everyone knew, and it just kind of stayed like that, and that was unusual at the.
Yeah, it's one of the big things of the Iron Man movie, isn't it, where he declares who he is at the end. I suppose that's quite.
Yeah, you're right, and that was odd at the time as well.
Yeah. So I think maybe that was just the vogue for these heroes. They didn't wear masks or anything, but they sort of kept it a secret. Do they act like kids though, Dave? Do you think they act in a childlike way, or?
I think they do. Yeah, I do actually. I mean, maybe not all the time. But to me, there was lots of stuff I was reading where I was thinking. There's one bit where they come back to they're deciding whether to come back home or not. Because should they do that? And then they decide they will. And then they go in and the house has been wrecked. And they're talking like, oh, maybe this, maybe that. And then it's the youngest one again. It escaped me again. Katie, isn't it?
Yeah.
She just in the middle of this conversation, she just bursts up crying. Oh, I want my mum.
Yeah.
And I thought that was good.
Yeah, there's a danger occasionally where I'm reading it and I'm thinking they're a bit too sensible.
Yeah.
Kids aren't. You've got kids. I've got a kid. They're not always going to live up to it. But I think from an expositional storytelling reason, they have to have that sort of stand up for themselves maturity going on.
I think it was okay. It worked for me okay. That they were like kids.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, cool. So what did you do, Dave? Did you go back and buy the first few issues of this, did you?
Well, Power Pack's one of those series that I've spent years just picking them up. I still don't have all of them.
Right.
But I still, when I see some, I'll go, oh yeah, there's another one,
Yeah.
And so I don't have all. I've got maybe, what did you say, 66? No, I don't think I've nearly got all of them. I've got maybe 30 odd or something through the run.
Yeah,
so I've still got lots to go.
So you just look for them when you're out doing a back issue dive in a shop or a convention or something. Yeah.
I'll go, here's Power Packs, and I'll start flicking through and pick up another few.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I like to do that rather than you could easily go on eBay and order them all now, couldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow that's more fun when we do it that way.
Yeah, I was in a comic shop once in Aberdeen, and the comic shop owner was he went, Power Pack? He was laughing at me. I thought, you bastard. Oh,
I remember being like 14 or 15 and going into a shop in London and asking for Usagi Yojimbo, and the bloke just laughed in my face. And I remember going, I don't know what's going on. Why did you laugh at me? Must have just seemed ridiculous. I was so obsessed with getting Usagi Yojimbo, I've had to ask at the counter,
Yeah. I guess it's like that high fidelity thing, isn't it? you're not asking for the cool record in the record store, you know. You're
Yeah.
asking for the wrong records.
Might well be, yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah,
Oh dear.
yeah. So you think it holds up? It holds up. Would it hold up to a modern reader? Do you think?
Well, things have changed so much, haven't they? Because there's so much reading in this. And there's so many words.
Yeah,
You know, you don't sit and read this in 10 minutes. I mean, it's packed with
yeah,
words. So probably for a modern audience, that would turn them off.
yeah. The first issue of this is a 6-issue image run, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it is. And I've spoken with people closer to our age that didn't at the time read the Dark Phoenix stuff or that.
right.
And I've said, this is the X-Men stuff I grew up on. I like this. Try that. And the first thing was, you know, I just can't read that. You know, it's just too wordy. I mean, we all know Claremont is wordy.
Yeah, yeah.
But to be coming to it now, he just didn't want to read it at all.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because for me, that's the high point of Marvel Comics.
Oh, yeah, well,
Dark Phoenix.
certainly X-Men, yeah.
Yeah, that run blew my fucking mind. I was so desperate to get the next issue. You know, I can remember every panel in certain issues. You know,
I often laugh looking back at it because that was the first X-Men stuff I was reading. You know.
yeah,
So it wasn't to me like, oh, we've arrived at the high point. I just thought this is what comics were like.
yeah. I know.
I just thought they were all like this, you know.
And the next 40 years were just a massive disappointment.
A little bit. You
Yeah.
thought, oh, wait a minute, I just happened to land on the best ones ever there.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose I would say that at my age, but
I still pick up fucking, I don't know, Executioners or X-Men Red and think this isn't as good as Byrne and Claremont. Fuck this.
that's right.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I mean, does it stand up? I think there's two different questions there. Does it stand up, and would it be suitable for a modern reader? And I think a modern manga reader wouldn't, you know, manga orientated reader wouldn't get it. It would,
Yeah.
you know, it would look too old fashioned. But if you sat there and read it, it's well told, it's well paced.
yeah.
Everyone's full of character. The June Brigman knows what she's doing around the art. You know, everyone. All the kids.
Yeah.
That must be a real difficult thing to do, to pull off just the face of a kid. You know, they're all white kids, you know, within 5 years of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Must be a difficult thing, but she does pull this off quite well.
Yeah, it's not something you see drawn very often in Marvel Comics at all, is it, kids?
They'd have to give them different coloured hair, or one would have glasses or something, wouldn't they, just to make them look different. That would be the little get out, I think, of a lot of modern artists, you know.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about June. So she's born 1960 in Atlanta, Georgia. Her influences include Stan Drake, Gil Kane and Walt Simonson. She started at AC Comics in 1983, and that her some work there, a very brief amount of work she did there, got her in the door at DC Comics. Other work she's done include the official Marvel guide to the official guide to the Marvel Universe. She worked at CrossGen on Sojourn and Meridian, so I'm not sure if she was part of that brain trust they had. You know, they all had to go. Was it in California or Florida or somewhere? They all went and worked in a studio, didn't they? I know Perez did it, didn't he? She worked on the Supergirl 1984 miniseries. She worked on Star Wars at Dark Horse, actually. Being a Star Wars fan, did you read much of the Dark Horse stuff, dude? Or?
I did, and I know the one you're talking about because that was actually a kind of Power Pack reunion.
Oh, right.
In the mid-90s. Yeah, it was Simonson and Brigman, and they were going to do this Star Wars miniseries, River of Chaos. So I was excited to read it at the time. I thought, oh, it's the Power Pack team doing
cool.
something again. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, she was at the same event, actually. I didn't get to speak to her, but I think Cliff Cumber, who I was there with, tabling with, he got to speak to her, and he said she was super nice. She disappeared a bit from our radar, which is a shame, because I think she's very capable at comics. And really fits into that sort of Bronze Age into the modern age kind of aesthetic. But because she went in 1995, she took over on the newspaper strip of Brenda Star Reporter. And she stayed on that from 95 to 2011. So we kind of lost her for, you know, a decade and a half doing that. She sometimes is an instructor at the Cubit School and also at the Savannah College of Art and Design, which is a sort of quite well-known comics illustration course. In 2018, she worked on an Ahoy comic, which is a Stuart Moore series called Captain Ginger, sort of space pirate cat thing.
Oh yes, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then 2022, she was a contributor to Comics for Ukraine, a charity comic. Not super prolific. We don't see huge amounts of work from her, but when we do, it tends to be good. Tends to be very readable, which is a good thing. Yeah, cool. Nice one, dude. And the other one which I mentioned to you just before we started was there was an actual TV pilot of this, which came out in 1991. At the height of what we look back on as the period of numerous mistakes made into Marvel movies. We had Hasselhoff's Fury, and we had Dolph Lundgren's Punisher, and all that sort of thing around that time, didn't we? But we loved them nevertheless, Dave, didn't we? And it was made by Paragon Entertainment Corporation in cooperation with New World Television. New World Cinema and New World Television was a sort of regular icon that flashed across televisions back then, and movies and videotapes. It was for NBC, and it was a Saturday morning live action TV pilot. It didn't go past pilot, wasn't picked up, but it eventually was shown on TV a few times. Of course, they tweak it completely. There's no costumes in it, and Jack had the power only to shrink. And word is, you hear these lot of rumours that it is meant to be a series of characters that are going to join the MCU, but who fucking knows at this point, man? Who knows? And let's be honest, who cares at this point? Which is a shame. I think they've missed the boat around making this into a brilliant cartoon series, which I think it has the propensity to be.
Yeah, that would have been good. Yeah, that would have been the way to go.
I think so. Yeah, that was just bitter me giving the commentary on the TV pilot. But
you just mentioned MCU there, and that's going on, isn't it?
You phase off from it.
You've always got to consider whether Power Pack is going to be in the MCU, and then so therefore start getting all your Power Pack issues.
Yeah, ready to
get
sell
them together
on eBay.
And start getting them CGC'd.
Just get them slabbed, Dave.
Yeah, I forgot. That's what's important here. Yeah. Power Pack in the MCU.
And the other thing I wanted to mention to you is there's an aging process that goes on with these characters. So I think it's Julie ends up graduating from elementary school at one point. So they do get older as it goes on, which is an interesting thing.
Yeah. Well, Marvel did that a bit, didn't they?
Yeah.
A little bit. Like 5 years would take about 40 years to happen. And every so often somebody would mention something having happened a couple of years ago.
Do you remember when we were in Vietnam or something like that? And you're thinking, fuck me, that was 50 years ago.
That's right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, good.
Interesting. Slowing down of time.
So would you recommend this to people to go out and buy, grab at a comic mart or something like that? I'm not sure if there's super amounts of collections of it. But I think.
I mean, with the smellers, I have always told them I liked it. I'm sure I brought it up and we talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, Tom was asking me earlier what we were talking about, and I said, and he was quite excited about hearing about this. Yeah. Power Pack. Good. Nice one, man. Another Bronze Age comic there for you. So let's talk about you, Dave. What you got on the bubble at the moment, man? You must be doing something new. What's going on?
Oh, well, I'm deep in the writing scripts for other artists phase just now.
Oh, okay. Look at you.
Yeah, so I asked about 18 people if they wanted to. I asked if they wanted to draw something, and so I often do that, and then think, oh, great, and then I have to go and write stuff, Oh.
So is that for a single sort of experiment?
That's for my own next Fred Egg comic that I'm doing.
What, a page each of these people? Or
that's the basic idea. Sort of my guest artists. So I'm working away on that, and then also we're still doing that comic smell comic. We're all working away on that.
Yeah, there was a couple of sort of hushed conversations about that when I was up.
Yeah.
We were sort of saying
That's
goodbye.
Ticking away nicely, yeah.
Good stuff.
So I just had a thing in this another zine thing called Trick Film. Trick Film.
Okay.
Yeah, like all one word. Trick Film.
Oh, okay. Where are they from, dude?
They're from the States somewhere or other. I should remember the name of the Do you know what? I'll take my time getting the name of the guy that did it, and you can cut out the gap. How's that?
Yeah, fine.
Or just leave it in. It's up to you. Yeah. I'm talking through it. I just happen to have it here. Trick film number 3.
Cool.
And this is put together by Charles Brubaker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
And
what's the sort of vibe of that, man? Is it a horror book or is it a...
It's generally about animation.
Okay.
But then he's just extended it with this 3rd issue that he wants to get more into comics as well.
Right.
So he's got a lot of different people doing little comics for it, and then he's also got reviews of things. It's nice, it's one of these DIY zine things that are always good to get involved with.
Yeah, I get you. Oh, good
Keep
stuff.
you going.
Yeah. Yeah, nice one.
So that one was called Legacy.
Can you hint about what it's about, or?
It was a thought on why on earth. I could read the first line from it.
Please do.
Here we go, and this will make you decide whether you want to read any more of this or not. If I just find it in here, page 12. This is me in this. I sometimes wonder why I devote time and effort to making Fred Egg comics. and then I'm at the drawing table there, and then the second panel is, what do I hope to achieve? And then outside the window, there's a nuclear bomb going off. And then it continues on from there, and I won't tell you how it ends.
Cool, so I'm in. Yeah, I'm up for that.
You're in? Did that work?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
It's got a little bit of the Peter Bagg feel about you sitting at a table there, and then suddenly something much more Dave Robertson happens in the background. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good.
What a good. Well, I'm not unhappy with that Peter Bagg comparison. One of my favourites, as you know, Tony.
Yeah, definitely. He's always at his table, isn't he? He's always at his table drawing, talking to the camera, isn't he, and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I like that. Good stuff, man. And what's happening on that Comic Smell? We just had that Mad one, which I was very lucky to be on. What else you got coming out? Do you know? Yeah,
well, I actually thought Tony's going to ask me.
Oh, yeah, I got you, finally. Yeah.
Right? And so I saw that coming, and so I actually got on the blower to Tom, and I says, what have we done? I don't know. I can't remember. So he told me some. I wrote them down.
Oh, good man. Excellent.
We've got more. We've got another J. These are all things that are in the can.
Yeah.
Already. More Justice League International. There's another one of them.
Cool. Nice one. I like those ones.
We did science fiction comics.
Okay.
I wanted to do that because, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a big sci-fi comic nerd. And I think that actually went into a 2-parter because there were so many.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And then this year we did discuss the fact that Spider-Man and Thor turned 60.
Oh, okay.
We made a thing of that.
Cool.
And then there was another one that you mentioned called Forgotten Gems. But I forgot whatever that was about again.
Can I ask you a question, Dave? Are you a Doctor Who?
Yes, please.
Okay. Are you a Doctor Who fan or?
Yeah, man.
Old or new? Old or new?
Well, to me, the best one is Tom Baker, and I like those guys, and I like Sylvester McCoy and all that as well. And the newer ones, I do like them as well because I like Russell T Davies writing a lot, and I've tuned in for. I always have a look at it, whatever's going on.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
So,
I've never talked to you about Doctor Who before.
I thought Jodie Whittaker was good, Doctor.
Right.
I thought the ones before that were good, but I didn't really like the writing so much.
Yeah, Capaldi could have been great, couldn't he? But
yeah, he was really good, but his stories were all, I don't know. Yeah, just my opinion. I thought this thinks it's too clever, Yeah, this program thinks it's too clever.
When I heard he was doing it, I thought, right, here we go. Rub your hands together. We get the new Tom Baker on their way. Do you know what I mean? It didn't really go that well for me. Yeah,
that's my memory as well. When they said that he was going to be doing it, everybody just was like, yeah. There was just an immediate feeling, but everybody, he'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do like Doctor Who, and I like Doctor Who comics as well.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I've got one coming up soon. I'm going to be talking some a particular Doctor Who story, which is a little teaser is linked to the a new episode coming out.
Sure. Yeah,
which
I know
might
what
be
you're
able to
talking
guess.
about.
Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk a bit about that. And that was that sort of Pat Mills, John Wagner, Dave Gibbons, Mike McMahon period was a fucking amazing period for Doctor Who comics, I think. You know, the Iron
That's going to be
Legion.
really interesting how that episode works out, how close it is to the.
Yeah, it
That's
is,
going
isn't
to
it?
be fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Good stuff, man. So where can we find you online and get your stuff?
You can find me at Fred Egg Comics.
Yeah, good. Excellent.
That's good, isn't it? That's short, isn't it? Fred Egg Comics.
Fred Egg Comics. Ideal. It's
Yes.
easy for me to put in the show notes because I can find it really
Brilliant.
easily. Like Penguin. Exactly the same. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Pop over to the Awesome Comics podcast Slack and you can join in the conversation there. It's really taken off over there, and we're really pleased with the sort of space over there to go and talk about your love and comics and who's got, you know, who's the best printer and, you know, and what tools you can use and where you can distribute your comic and stuff like that. If you listen to the ACP from this week, we've got Chris over from Global Comics, which is a new venture for distributing your comics, and it couldn't be easier, he tells me. Dave and I are not the best technical people in the world, but apparently you can drag and drop your comic onto the site and it takes you 5 minutes to stick it on there. So I'm going to give it a go this week. Have a listen to that one as well. So thanks, Dave. Always great, mate. And we'll have a think about the next one, I guess.
Thanks, Tony.
Cheers, mate.